In years, don't form any councils or keep no vicious pets. In fact, the kind of animal it's easy to forget.
Come on, everybody, squeeze in together. Squeeze in, let's get this photo happening. Koala power! Yeah! 22, Ethan. He was the last one killed on Appin Road, Appin, at the service station. A healthy koala ran up a tree, a couple of hours later, deceased on the road. That's why we're all here today. We want to make a stand for the koalas. We want to make sure they have homes just like we do, and we want to protect their habitat and the wildlife corridors. That wasn't meant to be part of it, but I added that in. So yeah, all those crosses indicate the deaths of koalas on Appin Road. So please make sure you got your kids with you at all times. We don't want any problems on Appin Road. The bathroom's over the back there. If you don't want to be in any photos, just let the camera crews and all that know. And if you have any photos of the day, please hashtag save our koalas. Got a sign? I want to see your signs come up after 3. All right? 1, 2, 3, go! Look at that. Look at those signs. Koala power. A respected member of the community doing the welcome to country. Everybody clap. Take it away, Uncle.
Good morning, Ricardo. I reckon that we know one another here, Ricardo. But thank you all the same, Uncle. Yeah. Can you hear me out there? I'm very honoured today. Can you hear me? Yeah. Don't be afraid to yarn. I love a yarn and I love a cup of tea. But I'm gonna have what my little uncle's had here. He's got the jumps in him this morning. He's full of it. Which is all good. Yeah. The concern, our koalas. What is the old Darawal people? But perfect special guests, special speakers. But no one's special on these special occasions. On ceremonies that is a concern to the great lands of the Darawal. Not only the people, our country, and the bushlands, and the many animals that lives on these lands. I've been saying in my ceremonies, in my gatherings with you people, special people, that these lands are a special country. I've spoke many times of the rivers that feeds the country, the Georges and the Nepean rivers, of which the Darawal, you imagine the Darawal in the old days, in the old ways. Loved this place, loved the animal life that lived here. And we'll touch on what they call the cooler, or the koala. I think I'm correctly, I was told by one of the ladies this morning that they didn't spell it with a C. I mean with a K, they spell it with a C. And they call it cooler. The cooler. And that's wonderful, isn't it? And it's a very, very grave concern. It needs to be taken care of. The cars need to slow down when they go and through this special place. I've always said that the sacredness of the Darawal lands, and starting from the great forest that was handed back to all people, and the 29 different clans of Aboriginal peoples that you people, if you know or don't know, have made this their own. Now we never come here to talk politics and that. We come here to talk about our animals. And if you check the sacredness of the land, all lands of Aboriginal people, you will see the animals that are known and protected by traditional landowners, traditional people, wonderful people. These Darawal people would have loved you people. Imagine their ancestors, the spirits of these people, looking down today and seeing what great people you are and what you're doing and keeping the sacredness of it, the spirit of it, the Darawal forest, as I said, and keeping the rivers clean that comes through their valleys, through their lands. and especially the koala, being knocked down and killed. 21 or 22 koalas, that's not nice in any country. We don't stand for that, and we won't put up with it. I've said to you that I've come here from the saltwater clans, and there's a man here, I'm not going to mention him. Me and him are the same traditional people. We come from the clans of the saltwater. But this land, the day that you people own, and you live on, and your children grow on, and your children can take care of this land. My work as a volunteer goes and checks the history and stories and the culture of these very same people of the land that we live on, that we're going to take care of. You take care of the koalas. I love the heart of young Ricardo. I love the heart of many people that I've touched, that I came in contact with. And I've made this my own with my family. I'm what you call a stone throw away from my land. I was born around the Koalas lands, around the Minamurra, and the Crooked Rivers and the Shellhaven. That my country runs deep south to the borders, both north and both south. But I own the land that you people own. And on behalf of the 29 clans in which I can speak from my heart in taking care of these animals. It's got to stop. And we said it many a times. The trees are going down. The land's being cleared. You know, the sacredness has been taken. I can chuck in Mount Gilead of what's occurred there, what's taken place there. The people who look after us, who are put in those places, I don't hold back with anyone. I'm like you people. I walk these lands, and I live by these lands. And they shouldn't go around with their eyes closed. Right? And they should see these things. And like all Indigenous people, they should know these things because they're born with it. It's like this little fella, the good Yaga lad. See, he's come over to see Uncle Ivan to tell me. There's the strength of it, and there's the truth of it. On behalf of the 29 clans that I can speak from my heart of, in concern of what's taken place here, and I hope the people that speak after me today speak from the same heart of what you people are here today for. And you have a great ceremony and welcome by all people. Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody a big clap. Uncle Ivan, I'd like to present you something from Sports Magic, our sponsor, and all the people here today. We'd like to say thank you very much for coming down and doing the Welcome to the Country, mate.
All right. All yours, mate. Oh, look good. Oh, thank you, Uncle.
Everybody thinks he looks good in the shirt.
Oh, look.
Woo.
Thank you, Ricardo. It's wonderful, mate. Thank you.
All right, very emotional time. Next up, we've got Nia. Nia is an environmental advocate of the area. She's been around here for many years, even though she's only 21 years old. And she's going to get up and do a bit of a talk as well.
Just for the kids, sorry.
Just for the kids, there's a fire truck over there if you want to go. You can see the fire truck. Anyway, Nia's up now, and she's going to do a bit of a reflection time.
I'd like to share a story with you all, and also to thank you all for coming. It's an awesome sized crowd we've got today. This is a true story. I like to think of our koalas as sneaky little superheroes. They were here in southwest Sydney when the first settlers came out here all those years ago. They were almost put at risk of extinction way back then. Okay.
Can you step over this way a bit? Just try to get over this way where the speaker is.
Can you hear me?
Try to squash in together. Try again. No,
Yeah.
talk louder.
Slowly and surely, they've been coming back from the brink, and now they're back. Their numbers have been going up. We started seeing them more in Campbelltown through the 70s and particularly in the 80s. Over the years, they grew more daring and ventured out of the bush into suburbia because the trees in Campbelltown grow on a soil type that's full of all the nutrients that they need in their favourite leaves. Right here in southwest Sydney, our koalas are actually flourishing. They're healthier than almost 100% of colonies in Australia. But we all live here too. And our need for housing and roads is also flourishing. The Sydney sprawl is now pushing the old boundaries of Sydney here in Campbelltown further south into a battle line to Appin, Wilton and beyond. Our koalas are now suffering massive casualties in increasing numbers every year through Campbelltown and Wallandilly and all the surrounding areas. But years of effort by koala experts, ecologists, activists, members of the public and neighbouring councils mean that there is now no more excuse available for government at any level to not do what's right for the wildlife of southwest Sydney. It will take all of us to save our koalas. With your support, our local politicians can convince their colleagues of the importance of this issue. So we hope to send our message today loud and clear to Macquarie Street from Macarthur.
Woo! Woo!
It's the state government that controls development consents, roads, the land clearing and development. And they shouldn't be allowing koala home ranges to be ravaged so that koalas have to cross increasingly busy roads and dangerous backyards. It's time for someone in government to take responsibility to save these irreplaceable animals. The buck passing between all levels of government has to stop because without the support of our politicians, we will lose our koalas forever. Positive change must happen now. It's not the koalas' fault that state government wants to develop all the land between Campbelltown and Appin. It's not the koalas' fault that the developers of the proposed Mount Gilead housing estate just down the road here were not asked by council to contribute to wildlife overpasses, even though we've lost a lot of koalas in that vicinity. It's not the koalas' fault that some developers would prefer not to allow independent ecologists onto their land to count the number of koalas there. And it's not the koalas' fault that there are more cars on our roads every year. So, I now ask you all for a moment of quiet reflection to remember all the beautiful souls we have lost on Appin Road, both human and wildlife, and in particular, our beautiful koalas. Thank you.
Thank you. You've all done a good job. I want to see your signs once more. 1, 2, 3. Woo! All right, there's a little doggy here. Is that somebody's dog? All right, just so it doesn't end up on Appin Road, that's all. Take care. All right, next up we have, I don't know if anyone knows him. You might know him, but he's around the area a fair bit. The MP of Campbelltown, Greg Warren.
Thanks, mate. Can you hear me okay? Yep. Uncle Ivan, thank you for your kind welcome. I too acknowledge that we're on the traditional lands of the Dharawal, who have been traditional owners of this land since the dream time, since they awoke from that great dream, and they have been protectors of this land. I pay my respects to the elders past and present, and all other fellow Aboriginal people here this morning. We don't only just owe it to the beautiful and the wonderful and proud Dharawal people to protect our heritage, to preserve koalas as well as other habitat. We owe it to ourselves as a community, for the very simple reason there's so many beautiful things about our community, our nation, and there's not too many more unique things than the preservation of our heritage. I want to acknowledge a few people, please. Ricardo, all the preservationists, all the conservationists here, all of you who are out on the roads at 2 a.m. in the morning protecting our koalas. I admire and respect you, and I thank you. I really do. To my dear friend and Shadow Minister for Environment and Heritage, amongst many other things, Penny Sharp, MLC. It's wonderful to have you here, Penny. She's not just a parliamentary colleague, she's been a friend of mine and a friend to our community, and supported me during other campaigns and everything with preservation and heritage, and she's taken the time to come here today, and I really thank her. Thank you, Penny. To my other friend, Ben Moroney, Councillor Ben Moroney, Campbelltown Council, Matt Deeth. I've seen Noel Lowry, Wallandilly Councillor, around there before, Michael Benesic, to all the other councillors and my Labor friends here, environmental activists and our Green friends as well. This isn't a matter of politics, this is a matter of common sense. But let's not lose sight that to fix this issue does require political leadership. It does require, this isn't a political speech or anything like that, but without political leadership, decisions won't be made to be put in place for the preservation of our valued, unique and beautiful koala colony. I'm going to let Penny, and I have the honour of introducing Penny in a moment, but we are a growing area. I moved to Campbelltown in 1995 with Simone to start our family, and I think welcoming people to our community is one of the greatest joys that we do. But when we do that, we want to make sure that those new residents, those new people coming to our region as their home, have just as much opportunity to enjoy the wonderful community that we live in, and our habitat, our lands, our koalas are part of that. That's why it's so important we have planning frameworks in place. Mia talked about before, when we're developing areas, there needs to be protections in place. We need to take this matter seriously. We need to see investment. You might recall in 2015, we had a policy in place to invest in koala preservation, engaging the right people, the sensible people and the experts to say how we can do this. And don't ever let anyone tell you that it can't be done. We've seen it very disappointingly, I think on the North Shore. I read in the paper and I made commentary, the Advertiser, and Roma Dickens here, and Jeff McGill and all the other guys who are here. Thank you so much for your support while I'm on the newspaper. But there was this enormous overpass, this picture of it looked like a bloody bridge or something like that. And I mean, an outstanding amount of money for over there on the North Shore, but nothing down here. So my point is it can be done, but they're just not putting it in the priority areas. Now there's so many different ideas in terms of preservation, and there's experts that know a lot more about that than I. I think it's John Price in 1798 who was the first European that came across a koala as he journeyed into the Blue Mountains. But in reality, our First Nations people, our Dharawal people, recorded history of 60,000 years have embraced and nurtured these lands and our koalas. There are relics that have been found that date back 25 million years, where there's fossils of koala existence going back that 25 million years. So they're here a long time before me and a long time before Europeanisation and a long time before us. We owe it to them to nurture and protect them. We owe it to our First Nations people, but we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to ourselves, and this can be done. Thank you so much to everyone for having me here. Thank you, Ricardo, everyone else. Thank you for organising this. What a great display of community power. Thank you so much. Can you please, thank you. Can you please welcome my friend and parliamentary colleague, the Honourable Penny Sharp, to say a few words, please. Thank you so much.
everyone? Now, is that working? Yes, very close. Okay, thank you very much. I want to acknowledge the Dharawal people and thank them for their custodianship of the land and make a promise to them that we're going to keep the koalas in Campbelltown and we're going to do that together. This week I, like others, was again appalled and shocked to see yet another precious koala run over on the roads here. We cannot ignore this issue anymore. I think as one of the earlier speakers said, it's crunch time for the koalas of Campbelltown. 90% of our koalas in New South Wales, their populations are in decline. We have the disease-free, healthy koalas living here. What sort of community is it? What sort of government is it if we allow them to simply go through neglect? And this is what this is. It's neglect. We cannot save koalas if we do not save their trees. We cannot save koalas if we do not give them safe passage as the development happens around us. We cannot save koalas if we continue to ignore the science that tells us what we need to do. I'm not going to speak for a long time today, there's lots of speakers, but what I am going to say is that Labor is committed to saving the Campbelltown koalas. If we're elected next year, we are going to make sure that they have the trees that they need. We're going to make sure that they have the corridors they need to move around, because we know it's not just Campbelltown. They go to Liverpool, they go to Holsworthy, they go all the way up to the Shire. And if we don't provide them with the ways to move around safely, they are not going to survive. We are also going to look at ways in which we can protect the land that's here to give them permanent protection. There's a lot of work to do in that area, but we can do this. And we're also going to ensure that our planning process takes them into account. You today that are here are the voice of the koala. We are listening to you, and we are going to ensure that our planning system makes sure that koalas are heard and they are protected. Thank you very much for coming here today. There's a lot of work to do, but we can do it together, and we stand right behind all of you who are doing it. I finally just want to thank all of the people who are looking after the koalas every day. We've lost 21 koalas in 3 years. That's almost 20% of the possible population that we've got here. They will not survive until we take action. It's crunch time. We're with you. We can do this.
Sorry everybody, I haven't got people help me on stage here at the moment. All right, just a little heads up on what's going on in the area. Where we are standing now will be the extension of Appin Road, the widening. So all these beautiful trees here, and there's been koala sightings in those trees there, there's been koala sightings in these trees. They come from St Helens Park, they walk up the road here to Naroomba and further on to Mount Gilead and all on. So we're standing right on the new road that's going to be here, and we're going to lose all these beautiful trees. So we need to stand up, and once again I want to see your signs after 3. 1, 2, 3. What a beautiful show of support. Francis. Jeff is a conservationist and a dedicated koala tracker in the area. So everybody welcome Jeff.
I'm a member of Conservation Volunteers Australia. I've been volunteering on the Wollondilly and Southern Highlands koala projects for about 2.5 years. The work involves searches for koalas and koala traces such as scats, and also radio tracking of koalas. Well, why do the koalas cross the road? In most cases, these are resident koalas who are within their home ranges, but the road crosses the koala's home range. Late last year and early this year, we were radio tracking 2 koalas just southeast of Appin. There was a male Rhaegar and a female Sahara, and we found that each of them crossed Appin Road on average once every 3 weeks. So repeated crossings of a very dangerous road, particularly the hill on the eastern side of the head of the Georges River, where the cars come steaming down at over the speed limit. In shale sandstone transition country, like at Gilead, about 2 kilometres south of here, and around Appin, the average home range of a female koala is about 10 to 20 hectares, and the male koalas is even larger. So we have a lot of these resident road crossing koalas. But there are also some migrating koalas. The migrating koalas are mostly young males who are dispersing, looking for a home range of their own and an opportunity to breed. Late last year and at the beginning of this year, we radio tracked a young male koala, Queeburn, who was caught south of Appin, and he migrated slowly across the Cataract Gorge and up the south up the valley of Cascade Creek along the Allens Creek Koala corridor. He attempted to continue migrating south but was hit and killed on Picton Road. The roads are most dangerous for the migrating koalas who are not only not familiar with the area that they've moved into and the hazard presented by the road, but they may actually have been born in a territory where there were only fire trails and they'd never encountered a road before. Well, what needs to be done? We need to have exclusion fencing on both sides of the road and wildlife overpasses and underpasses to allow the koalas and other fauna safe passage across those dangerous roads. Yeah.
Everybody cheer, your sign's up. Everybody, Jeff Francis. All right then. I don't know if anyone knows this lady, but I'm sure you all do. Everybody put your hands together for Kate Ryan! Wyre's Koala Coordinator. She's going to do a bit of a talk.
Hi everybody, there's a lot of people here today that have probably met me over the last 10 years and I really hate to do talks like this, but it's for the koalas. First of all, I'd like to thank Richard for putting together, again, a wonderful event. The first one was for the rally we had around Caroline Avenue. Now, the first time I ever saw a koala, sadly, was in 1983, and it was a dead one. It was at the bottom of the gorge at Wedderburn. Sorry, Richard. Oh, diseases. So that was the first koala that I ever saw was a dead one, and I never thought that I would be this far today in doing what I do. So for 10 years I've been coordinating koalas for Wyres, and back in the day we hardly got any. It was more records of sightings that I went out with Professor Rob Close, and I've basically learnt everything that I know today through Professor Rob Close. He's been an absolute treasure to the whole environment, to the area, and teaching all of us carers what we know today. What concerns me is the amount of koalas that are currently coming into care, which up until a few weeks ago I had 6 in care. All of them have been hit on Appin Road. 2 of them was actually a mother and baby that we rescued, that a member of public reported that the baby was sitting actually just here where the crosses are on Appin Road. The mother was up a tree. We still have them in care. If we don't do something now about the koalas that we have here, they won't exist in another 50 years' time. They will be extinct in this area. We understand that members of public like to have housing. We all live in houses. We know that that's a necessity in life. But there has to be some sort of facility that's set in place, whether it be overpass crossings, things like that, so that they have a natural corridor that they can get from one area to the other. Because if they don't, eventually what we have left with the roads that they're going to put through, all the way through from here to Gilead to Appin, they will block the natural progression that these koalas need to move from one area to another for mating, genetics. You know, if we block the roads off, they're going to become landlocked. They then become genetically impaired. You're going to have koalas that aren't good quality. At the moment, we have one of the only colonies in the New South Wales state that is totally disease-free. For how long that's going to last, we don't know, because we know through core viruses, retroviruses and things like that brought on by stress, the more stress we put on these animals, down the track we might end up with a colony that's going to be impaired. And that is not what we want. So it's great to see everybody here today. We need to put more pressure on the local councils and the local governments to do what is right for koalas, and that is to give them an area that's safe to live, an area that's safe to breed, so that our future generations of children have something that is natural and wonderful that they can look upon and say, this is what's in this area. So I thank you all for coming today. Do what you can to report all koala sightings, because it's through the koala sightings that we can prove what is in the area, that gives the government the statistics that we need to back up our argument that we need these animals protected in the area. Thank you very much.
Well, I can tell I'm not the loved one. Frankie, how rude. Can you see where you're going, mate? Had too many eucalyptus leaves today, have you? You right, mate? Who loves Cranky? Beautiful floppy ears. Now, Cranky, we want to see if you can climb that tree, mate. You reckon you can do it? Or have you put a bit too much weight on? Think you have. As you can see, Cranky's disease-free. Turn around. He hasn't got wet bottom. No wet bottom there, sir. His eyes are clear. No signs of chlamydia there, mate. Good man. Look at this. All right. Second last speaker of the day. We've had to change the list around because some people are running late, but that's okay. We're here for everyone. And we're all here together. It doesn't matter what political party they're in or anything. We're all here together, and we're all going to be as one, and we're all going to fight together for the koalas. So next up, second is Ben Moroney, the Greens.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. I'd also like to make my own acknowledgement that we're meeting today on land that is Aboriginal land, land that was never ceded by treaty or by contract, and is, was and will forever remain Aboriginal land. Woo! I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge their history, their culture and their ongoing struggle. And that ongoing struggle is important because that is an ongoing struggle that ties into what we're doing here today. It is a struggle to preserve this land, a struggle to preserve country that was held in custodianship, sustainable custodianship, for tens of thousands of years. And if they can do it, so can we. We can learn from the original custodians of this land, the traditional owners of this land. We can learn their techniques. We can learn what they have done in order to preserve this country. So, other people have already told you why it's important to preserve this koala colony. Other people have already made clear what is so beautiful and precious about these koalas, so I'm not going to repeat that. What I'm going to talk to you about today is the underlying reason that things like this continue to happen. Any time something like this happens, this struggle is repeated across the state. It is the trees and koalas here. It's the gas fields in northern New South Wales. It's the coal mine in the Liverpool Plains and in Queensland. It's everyone fighting to preserve heritage in the inner city, to preserve their homes from toll roads. It's everyone who is fighting to protect what is theirs. And there is a reason that we are being prevented from fighting from what is ours, that our political leaders do not respond to our demands. And that is because the power in this state and in this country has been taken away from the people. It is a crystal clear pattern that has been ongoing since colonisation in this country to take power away from those who know the land, who know the area and who know what's good for their communities and put it in the hands of bureaucrats and political elites. Woo! Thank you. The planning system in this state is not owned by the people. The planning system in this state is not run according to the wishes of the people. The planning in this state is run according to the whims of two groups of people: bureaucrats in Macquarie Street and developers.
Shame!
Developers own every single portion of the planning system in this state from top to bottom.
Shame.
When something like this comes to council, and I'm fully aware, and as Ricardo has pointed out, that this part here is going to be widened for a road. Did you know your council could not stop that from happening? We had no capacity to stop that from happening. Did you know we had no capacity to stop Mount Gilead from being approved?
Shame!
And the reason is, when someone puts a planning proposal into Campbelltown and they take it to Campbelltown City Council and they don't like the answer they get from us, they can go straight to the minister and have it approved over our heads.
Shame!
They can go straight to a panel of unelected bureaucrats called the Greater Sydney Commission and demand that things be passed without our consent. And now, not only have they done that to planning, they've done it to development as well. From now on, when someone wants to come into Campbelltown and put a development through, you know, the one thing that councils, that's supposed to be our core business that we're told to stick to by the state government, do you want to know what it goes to now? It doesn't go to your council, it goes to something called the local planning panel. It's a group of 4 people, not 15 like your council. Your councillors who represent a proportional vote of this LGA, a panel of 4 people, one of whom is directly appointed by the Minister for Planning, 2 of whom are appointed from a list given to us by the Minister for Planning. We get to pick one person, and the council doesn't even pick it, the General Manager does. That panel now decides any development that doesn't go to the Greater Sydney Commission. We are completely cut out of the planning process. And I'm not saying councils always get it right, don't get me wrong. But when councils get it wrong, we hear from you. When councils get it wrong, the first people that you're on the phone to are us, and rightfully so. But we don't have the power to control that anymore. We've had planning powers taken away from us, we've had planning powers taken away from local communities and handed to panels of bureaucrats that only respond to money and the whims of private enterprise.
Shame.
So what I'm going to end with is this. Politics does not come from politicians, whatever politicians might try to convince you. And I say that as a politician. Politics comes from you. We don't lead, we follow. And you need to make sure that we are hearing you. You need to make sure that things like this continue to happen. Because this is where change comes from.
People power.
People power. Change comes from the streets. Change does not come from dusty halls in a chamber in Sydney. Change comes from you. And you need to drive that change, and you need to make sure that every politician from local to federal level is hearing your voice loud and clear and knows that you will demand nothing less than what you want and what you deserve. Woo! Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got Caress now, and I'm going to, before I hand the mic over to her, she's a Liverpool councillor. And it's good to know that Wollondilly, just up the road there, is standing up to protect our koalas, the council out there. We've got Liverpool standing up to protect our koalas. We've got our council just about here. So we need to people power it and get it up to there, like Wollondilly and like Liverpool Council. Everybody clap.
Yes, hello, and thank you all very much for coming here today, because this is extremely important, and I can only reiterate, as a councillor, exactly what Ben said. The planning powers that once belonged to the community is no longer what is happening. It is the state, it is the federal government who makes those decisions. Councillors do not make those decisions. And We only know that the difference is from the community. The community are the people now who have the power to make the difference. Woo! It's the community that has to become stronger. It's the community who has to stand up, raise their voices and state their concerns. If you do that, we can achieve wonders. Our koalas need our protection. We must stand up for the koalas. Liverpool Council, on the tail end of this problem, knows that what happens down in Wollondilly, what happens here in Campbelltown, makes a difference to what happens in Liverpool. We have to stand together. This is a regional problem for a very special colony of koalas. The last remaining disease-free koalas in Australia. That is so significant. Please go home and talk to all your friends. We have one chance to make this right. Let's all stand together and stand for the koalas. Thank you.
Woo! Put your signs up, everybody! People power! Thank you very much. All right, sorry about that. We're just getting a bit hyped up over here with all this talk and power. You want to talk? You can't talk. Sorry, back massage. Oh. Thank you. You're always... I help your relatives, you help me. Thanks, mate. All right, next up we have Pat from the National Parks Association, MacArthur. Now, try to listen clearly because she's got a soft voice. But she'll do good. She'll do good. She's been doing so much hard work around the community. A little bit shorter than I am. And she's been doing so much work in the community in regards to fighting for the koalas. Is she here? Oh, sorry, there you are. And she's been doing a great job. So I'm going to put her on the mic and we're going to squeeze her tummy in and we're going to get that loud voice protecting out there, okay?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody that's here today. Politicians, Wollondilly have stepped over the border, which is absolutely fantastic. Liverpool, that everybody's on side. We've been fighting to save our koalas since the 1980s. This is something that Campbelltown people have done, Liverpool people have done. And every time we have a little win, we think that's fantastic. We've actually won something. But there we are, back again. Now, probably one of the worst things that's ever happened since they shot the koala for their pelts. When they did this, and it was banned, it was down to about 20 odd koalas left in the whole population. But these guys, they went forth, they multiplied, and they were good at that. Because this one population now reaches from Appin to Campbelltown, to Liverpool, to Holsworthy, and right over to Sutherland. They're all big one happy family. Like we are today, we're all big one happy family trying to save the koala. You will remember when Robert Close did his studies with his team and students. Everybody was out looking for koalas. We wanted one named after us, or our children, or our grandfather. And they have done a fantastic job. He's been able to record the longevity, how many babies they had, where they travelled. There was one enterprise in Koala Dan, and he moved from Pentland, I think, to Narumba Reserve, over Mount Gilead, and went all the way down to Douglas Park. Another one went from Pentland right over to Sutherland. So this sort of proves that they really are one family. The DNA was undertaken. And again, this is how it comes out. They're one big, happy, chlamydia-free population. But They're overcrowded in Holsworthy. Can you imagine 18,000 of hectares of bushland, practically, but they're overcrowded. They're coming out onto our roads. They're being killed in Campbelltown. They're being killed in Appin, Liverpool, Heathcote Road, and even in Holsworthy. These beautiful animals are being killed, and something has to be done about it. 22 on this road, and the answer we're getting, and I'm sorry this is political, and I'm feeling quite political, from Gladys Berejiklian is, oh, those Campbelltown koalas and up those, they're not worth saving. What we'll do is we'll put a fence right down the eastern side of Appin Road so they can't get across. Well, whoopee-doo, she's too late. We found them in Narumba Reserve, we found them in Beulah. In Beulah we found a gorgeous female with pouch young. Jeff was with us, and so was Lynn Bowden over there. So we know they're there. The developer said there's no koalas on Mount Gilead. Campbelltown Council, we don't like them because they're not here today, but we know that they're trying behind the scenes. They thought, this is odd. We know there's koalas over there. So they got Dr. Stephen Phillips to come and do a survey. And guess what? Surprise, surprise, there are koalas on Mount Gilead. We've got to protect those. We've got to stop the 22 that have been killed along there. On Friday there was a wallaroo killed on that road. And down in Appin there was a swamp wallaby killed. It's just beyond belief why these corridors hadn't been put in before. If those overhead corridors had been put in, there'd be 22 koalas on the way to Camden Council. Can you imagine? We could have the only botanic garden in the world with koalas. Now, wouldn't that be fantastic? We are now the only place where koalas and platypus are in the Georges River. If they are there, no one's found them. But we've found platypus and we've found koalas. Our bushland is high quality. We should be the tourist capital of Western Sydney. We're only an hour from the Sydney. We're about the same for Blue Mountains, 3/4 an hour for the beach. Why isn't this city the tourist place? Okay, some people can afford to go and stay in Sydney, but I know when we go to other cities, we don't stay in the middle, we can't afford it. We stay on the outside. So this is where people should be. And we've got to push our area. We've got to protect our koalas. But most of all, we've got to get those overpasses and underpasses under Appin Road.
Signs up, everybody! Woo! Koala power! Good on you, Pat, with the loud voice there. You've done a wonderful job, sweetheart. Okay, next up, we have the Honourable. I thought somebody was telling me how to run the show then. Good on you, Benny. All right, we have the Honourable Mark Pearson from the Animal Justice Party.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's about time we started to give back to the environment. It is about time we started to give back to the animals that we have exploited and squashed and killed and maimed and tormented since we arrived. We just keep taking and taking and taking from our land, our beautiful land, our rare and precious land. This is a difficult country to live in. It's riddled with drought and difficulties for all of these amazing native species. But they, without damaging the environment, like the koala, it does not damage the environment. The kangaroo doesn't. The wallaroo, the wallaby, the platypus, all these extraordinarily beautiful, soft animals that have evolved over millions of years to live in Australia without harming the habitat. And so when we look at these trees, when we look at land that the government and that developers are wanting to develop or purchase or build roads, they just see land that belongs to us as humans. They don't see that these trees, these spaces, are the homes and living dwellings of these beautiful animals. That it is not our land, it is their land and the land that we must respect together. We have to change this mindset. It's a mindset that's been developed since the time we just plundered the land and cleared it for industries, agribusiness industries, for housing developments and for roads. The extraordinary thing is that under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act of New South Wales, it is an offence. It is a breach of criminal law to distress, abuse and kill an animal unnecessarily, unjustifiably and unreasonably. And what I am going to do as a Member of Parliament of the Legislative Council, being the first person to be elected in Australia on an animal protection platform. This is a message. 3.5 years ago, the Animal Justice Party, the first time they stood in New South Wales, was elected to the upper house. A person was pushed in by the average people in the community who said, now animals deserve a voice and a standing in the very place where the decisions are made, like this ridiculous report by this Berejiklian government.
Fine.
All it is just a whitewash. It's just smoking mirrors of gestures saying that we're actually going to do something to look after these animals, but they have not actually addressed their needs as they are now. It's this bizarre idea of being able to relocate extremely complex animals like koalas, who, when my understanding is when they find a home and when they are born into a place, when they have found a home with their parents and their parents have taught them about the area, they are in habitat, habituated to that area. To drag them out of their habitats, their homes, put them in a box and take them 200 or 300 kilometres out west where it's more convenient for government and developers to knock down their habitat and build roads. Most of them will not survive. Some wild animals have a better chance of surviving. But like the eastern grey kangaroos, koalas have a habitat specificity. They have to feel at home and be and live where they have been raised. That is imperative, and that must be taken into account whenever the government is sitting around with bureaucrats making decisions about what they're going to do with the wild animals that we want to protect and must be protected. There is one thing that's very clear. There is not a major government of either persuasion that I have become aware of that is really listening to the needs, really taking into account the desperate situation for the wildlife in Australia, particularly koalas. So while that happens, we have to let the world know what the Australian governments are doing and authorising to our wild animals, to our precious wild animals. And that is very, very possible. If we look at the history of the koala, it was Japan and the Japanese market for their fur and skins which caused the decimation of koalas, 40, 50, 60 years ago. But it was when the world saw what we were doing to these animals that the pressure was brought to bear on the governments of the day, and then the koala was protected and the killing of them and maiming of them for the production of their fur and skins was banned. I've just come back from Europe, where we've pitched the plight of kangaroos, and only 3 days ago the Dutch Parliament have put in a bill to ban the imports of kangaroo products into Holland. So when the government doesn't listen to us, when the authorities, when the regulators do not listen to us, when we're speaking for these animals, we will go to the world who looks at what we're doing in our backyard, with our wildlife, with our animals. Look what's happened with whales. Look what's happened with other animals. We have to lift these animals, koalas, just like other wild animals, up to the same standing and respect and protection that those beautiful animals have. These animals need to be lifted up to that level. So what's going to happen, just like Russia banned the imports of kangaroo meat, and China was approached by Barnaby Joyce to try and open up the market, but I went there with an indigenous man and we talked to the Chinese authorities, and they have refused to start to import kangaroo meat. And the same is is happening in Europe, where the European Parliament is seeing what we're doing to kangaroos. We are now going to we need to take that to the world and show the world what we're doing to koalas. Woo! And then that pressure will be brought to bear on the governments of the day here to start to wake up and invest the millions and billions of dollars that they're saying that they've made. They're telling the world, trumpeting from the rooftop, of how much the government has made and has got in the reserve from all of their savings. Well, the savings are coming through abusing animals by just blazing through their habitats and not putting in the resources and finances to build overpasses and underpasses, and maybe even review, looking at the fact that do we really want to go down the road, so to speak, of building more and more roads for cars. The time has come to review the whole idea of transport and using vehicles to the degree that we do. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do as the member of the Animal Justice Party, and we'll have another one elected next year, that's what the National Party are telling me, that they're of the view that animals is now the new black, the new issue which the government has to turn their mind to. And because of that, we will get another person elected to the Parliament from the Animal Justice Party platform next year, and there'll be two voices in a Parliament where the two major parties will be neck to neck, and our two votes will have power.
Power!
The koalas will have a voice and power in the decision making of what happens on their land, what happens in their water.
Exactly.
It is a breach of criminal law, the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, to maim, harm and distress and kill an animal unnecessarily, unjustifiably and unreasonable. What the government and the developers are planning to do to these animals is not justified, is not necessary, is not reasonable, and therefore anybody who partakes in that action of harming these animals, I intend to see that they understand that they may well be in the Supreme Court facing a prosecution for cruelty and aggravated cruelty to animals. So these guys, who may be sleeping up there, they're behind you. You have to stand by them. They have no voice. They can just be exploited like children. They can be exploited like weak people who don't have the strength or don't have the advocacy to be able to have their voices heard, where the decisions are being made about their future. You are their voice. You're standing here. And that is a wonderful thing that you've made the effort, because this is the type of outrage, this is the type of action which brings the changes in our society that we never thought we could dream of. And we've only just recently seen how some of those changes have come, where 50 years ago, 10 years ago, people would have laughed at you and thought it was never possible. We have the power to stand by these animals and make sure their voice is heard and their space, their home, is preserved.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.